Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel. Today I'm going to do a video on 1 year, or close to 1 year, close enough, of ownership of the M4 F82 CS. I've popped the hood, it's not misaligned. Popped the bonnet. So I just want to show you some bits about this car. If you don't know about the M4 CS, it's like the one that sits between the competition version and the GTS version. So it's meant to be a slightly more lightweight car. It's tuned up a little bit more than the stock comp. It's got the forged alloys on it. It's got all these weight-saving hemp. I think they're hemp, so you can smoke them. Don't smoke them. Door cards with no speakers in the cards. You've got little speakers there. And this strap, which is annoying, and I wish they'd just put like a little recess or something, or some sort of handle rather than that strap, because you don't get the control when the door opens. So there's one thing that's continued to annoy me a little bit. You do get used to it. Let's start with in the car. I'm going to take my shoes off because it's pretty clean. I know it's polishing its car again. Let's get in the car. Oh, so you can experience this all with me. It might be a bit dark in here. So you reach over and you grab these, and because it's close to the hinge, you don't get that leverage. So you got to give it a good whack. And the door closes. Lovely. It's going to be a bit dark in here. Now, yeah, okay, the bonnet's open. It's a really nice place to be in here. These seats give you a little bit of top sort of bolster support, which is handy for track day, but not quite enough. But lots of lower bolster support. Makes getting in and out of the car a bit of a pain, because you do rub against the edges there, no matter what you do, really. So I'm putting a bit of wear and tear on there. I love the Alcantara inserts that you get on this car. They're a real nice touch, and the Alcantara central console strip, whatever you want to call it, is really nice. The DCT gearbox now feels at home. One of the problems is there's not much roll on the DCT gearbox. When you put it in drive, you don't actually move until you put your foot on the floor, which is a little bit different to the ZF8 in the 240, or the M140. It would sort of, you got to stop it with the pedal. This, you need to get it started a little bit more. It has this climate air control thing, which is different to a normal thing. It's a bit limited, but that's absolutely fine. The sound system isn't so great with just this central thing, but you get used to it, and again, it's okay. The cabin is just really nice. It's all nice and dark in here. It feels like a BMW. I love the fact it's still got the analog dials, which is really important to me. Yeah, the DCT gearbox, I think, a manual is much better and much more fun, and the next car I get will be a manual. But I think the DCT suits this car. It seems to suit it really well, and it's just a really good. It's a really good, dual clutch transmission. It's a really fast system. In the most aggressive mode, it's really snappy. The downshifts are nice and quick. It's a good transmission system. What else do I like about it, guys? Well, it's pretty civilized on the road, to be honest. You start it up and it will go into its default efficient mode. I don't know if you can change those defaults. I haven't been able to find a way, because it puts it into efficient, mapping on the pedal, the throttle mapping or whatever it is. Then it puts you into sport suspension and sport steering, I think. I don't know why it puts you into sports suspension by default with the efficient mode, because the comfort suspension is probably the way to go, and maybe even the comfort steering, although I'm not too fussed about that. The gearbox speed, I think it's in speed 1, which is fine. I would like that just to be default to comfort springs. If anyone knows how to do that, let me know. There must be a way. You have somewhere to store your coffees, which is good, but you're lacking space here and you're lacking the armrest. So I do sometimes kind of miss that central armrest, but I tend to just put my right arm up here and then hold like that. and then the left arm might just waggle around a bit. That will upset some people. Or it might just go down here kind of thing. The seating position is really, really nice. I struggle with certain cars. I struggled with the M240 for headroom, and my knees would hurt because it was almost like they shoehorned the clutch pedal in, and to constantly have your foot on the clutch, you were kind of twisting your knee here, and long journeys and track days, my knees would ache. This, everything fits, you know, it just feels like there's plenty of space, and the interior quality on the M4, you know, is better than the F Series M2, in my opinion. It just is. So yeah, the size of the car and the weight. Now this is the thing. Let's start talking about track day usage. The main sort of shortfallings of the car are actually, I notice when I'm driving it on track, and it is still, even at sort of 1550 kg, it still is quite a heavy car. It's a powerful, heavy car, and you notice that when you go barreling into corners and you're on the brakes. You know, you're hard on the brakes, and it really works. That weight really works the brakes. And when the car's kind of like on the brakes and going forward just before a corner, that can give you quite a lot of understeer. You know, so it can be, you can almost struggle to get it onto the line sometimes if you're really late braking. But that's just a characteristic, I think, of any heavy car. Then when you're throttling on, if the tyres are up to temperature, you know, and it's dry and it's a good track, you can really get on that accelerator pedal, but you still can find the traction control kicking in, limiting you back. And I haven't run this with the traction control off yet on track. But yeah, so when you're coming out of the corner and throttling on, you can feel that back end moving around. You do also feel quite a lot of body roll with it. The PS4 tyres are okay when they're up to temperature, although they can overheat after a session, towards the end of the session, and then they start going away a little bit. But they're very good tyres. I'll do a separate review of those, but I'm going to put Cup 2s on it because I'm more interested in sort of getting the ultimate kind of track performance. I don't drive it fast on the road anyway, so not less worried about that. So I'll probably go with the Cup 2s. The ceramic brakes are absolutely fantastic. I think you'll get like 5 or 6, maybe even more, maybe 7, depends how hard you drive, track days on the front pads. The front pads take all of the wear. Let's just come out the car now because we're finished with the interior. You've kind of seen all of that. It's quite a simple interior, just really nice though. Really nice. Let's come out the car. Make sure we turn it off. I do sometimes have issues with actually getting the car to turn off. I end up starting it again because I've actually turned it off, but I don't know, it's just me. Let's have a look at, so the carbon ceramics, if we look in there, can you see that? We're down to about 35, 40%, maybe something like that, maybe 30%. So I think I've got one more track day on it. I was chatting to Mark and he was saying you should probably change them. And he's probably right, because it's not so much the fact that you'll have pad left at the end of the day, it's the fact that you'll overheat the braking system when you've got less meat on the pad. But they're so expensive, I think I've got to get that one more track day out of them. But to replace the pads, I think is only going to be about 660. One of my patrons was telling me you can get the OEM pads from a place for 660, but you can also get other ceramic pads, you know, non-stock ones for about the same price. And normally you'll be paying, what, $450 for a set of steel front pads for an M4? I don't know, you tell me. But the difference is worth it. It'll be when it comes to doing the rotors or the brake discs, the ceramic brake discs, when it will get expensive. The rears take a lot less wear, so it works the fronts a lot harder. You probably can't see in there, but yeah, there's a lot more meat. There's a lot more meat on the bone of the rear brakes, so they won't need doing for a while. So the cost of the ceramics hasn't hit me yet. The tyres, the PS4s hold up to track day use. They're wearing the shoulders out more. The rear's much more consistent wear, but the fronts, even if I'm running good high pressures, you get that shoulder wear, which is, you know, because they're a staggered setup. You've got I think there are 20 on the front, 19s. You can't swap. That's a BMW thing. So yeah, I'm going to get, those fronts are going to be gone soon. And the rears will still be good, although I'm going to blast out the rears so I can just change all four of them at the same time. What is this engine like? It's S55 engine. I don't know much about this engine. You know, you learn about cars when you take bits off them and replace them and do it all yourself. And, you know, I'm not a mechanic. I don't know much about this engine. What's it like to experience? It's lovely. Doesn't seem to be much lag, you know, like turbo lag. Feels very instant, the power. And it really likes being kind of revved. It's just on the road, a full tilt. It's so much power going through the rear. If it's not a really nice day and a really nice bit of road, you can often find the traction control kicking in when you're just trying to accelerate. And it can be a bit of a handful on the road, but I kind of find that I like it, but it does have too much power, the car. I've talked about that. Definitely way too much power. But that's just the way they are now. In terms of practicality, the boot is fantastic. So I've never had anyone in the back seats of the car, but you could do, you know. But the boot, you've got plenty of boot space in there, and you can fold the seats forward. You can get loads of stuff in there. So it would be a nice car, like, to tour around, like Europe in, or the country, and going to track days, you know, going to car events and stuff like that, just enjoying. And you can use it as a daily. You'll only get, if you're careful in efficient mode, you can get like 25 to the gallon. Maybe if you're on a motorway run, you might get up to 30 or something like that. But it does guzzle through the petrol, especially if you're running it in Sport Plus mode all the time and having fun. So that's the downside. Love this carbon fibre bonnet. It's nice and light. It's so light. Just feel it when you're putting it down. It's really good. I love the overall look of the car. You have to close this slightly differently. I'll close that later on. Just use two hands and push it down rather than drop it. It won't lock if you drop it. Love the carbon fibre roof. Overall, I think for the price point, you know, in this sort of reasonably large coupe area, there's not that much competition for the M4 competition, is there? I mean, what else are you going to pick up between 40, you know, if you went for a non-CS, and maybe up to 60 for a CS, that's going to match the performance and have the styling of it, give you carbon ceramics, give you these forged alloys. It's got the titanium exhaust. That's the only issue I've got to resolve, is a little rattle from the exhaust. I think it's the little valve in there, because it only does it in efficient mode when it's warming up. But I will get that fixed. What else are you going to get that's going to be able to pull like this, but also be rear-wheel drive and have fun and looks this good? Well, you'd have to go with a Porsche, wouldn't you? Probably, you know, an older Porsche, a 997 Carrera or something, you know, or, you know, the Mercedes and the Audis. You don't have that rear-wheel drive option as far as I know, which is important to me. You've got the new Supra, which is, you know, kind of sports coupe with the B58. But I think this is probably a better car, although I haven't driven that. But it looks a bit nicer, I think. And am I happy with it? Yeah, I am. I'm planning. Things can always change, but I'm planning on keeping this car for life at the moment. You know, it ticks every box. Just saw exactly the same colour M4 Comp G82, and it was really nice. You know, it is nice, don't get me wrong, but just for the money, it's going to give me more power, and, you know, it's a little bit more modern. You get the carbon bucket seats, and I'm starting to get used to the looks of the front. But I wouldn't want to change, because I don't think, in essence, there's anything there that I want that this car doesn't give me. What's it like to own in terms of maintenance costs? Well, so far I've had one fault with it, which was an O2 sensor, which was about 87 quid, something like that. It was cheap and it was a 2-minute job. So that's okay. Apart from that, I've got the exhaust rattle. I will be doing I've had a service on it. So it's had an oil change and filters and spark plugs, I think. I will be doing brake fluids just to keep that fluid fresh in the car, because I'm obviously going to be exploring some more tracks with it. And I will do the front pads and tyres. But apart from that, it's a little bit more expensive than running other cars because of all the performance parts. But I think the quality of the car is really high for the price point. You know, the build quality seems to be good. It is a bit rattly inside. It can be a bit rattly inside. Nothing major, but just some little creaks from that non-standard centre console and stuff. And you play around with it, move that drawer out, and the sort of creaking stops a little bit. That doesn't bother me too much. Apart from that, I think it's a really high quality car. Even the leather with the part Alcantara inserts, you know, and the gaps in between them, real high quality stuff. I just think for the money, and the Alcantara steering wheel, it's got the heads up display, which I never really use, but it is a nice little kind of gimmick. Might put that on when I'm doing track days, actually. Yeah, so I'm still as in love with this car as I was when I first knew I wanted to get one. I saw one on the forecourt of my local dealership. I thought, wow, you know, I always liked M4s, but I just felt with this, all the carbon splitter on the front, you know, and the gloss black and the little carbon splitter on there and the bonnet, it had this little special feel, and the forged alloys and the ceramic brakes. It just had a special feel over a normal M4, an M4 comp. But the difference in price was minimal, and I'm really glad, because I think the fact it's a CS will mean that it will be special later on down the line, because there's not that many of them. So yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love the lights as well. These lights, you like the lighting options that they've got there, these weird LED platelets, and the front adaptive LEDs. I mean, these cost an absolute fortune, like to spec. So to have these on the car already, just for the lights, the forged alloys and the ceramic brakes and that bonnet, which is worth about, I think I'm told it's an £8 part. I think you get your money's worth out of these CSs, which you normally don't say, do you? Normally it's like, when the CS comes out, it's like, well, they're not worth the extra money. And maybe they're not when they're new, but in the second-hand market, I think I might have got this at a relatively decent time. For the extra over an M4 comp, it's well worth it. On the track, like I said, they are an absolute animal. You can keep up with most cars, apart from very good drivers running GT3s. You're going to struggle to keep up with them in the corners. You know, and there's supercars. There's some supercars that will skin you, but you can still have a play with them. But the problem is, as I've said, 99% of cars that go on track days aren't as powerful as this, or aren't quite as quick as this. So you're kind of you're missing out on the fun a little bit. The novelty of going quicker than other cars, because the car's faster, wears off thin, and it becomes more about working to keep up in something that might even be slower than the car in front. And you're really having fun trying to keep up with the cars. So you miss out a little bit on that. But you can absolutely set some blistering times with it. It feels, though, that you're putting a bit of a load on that car when you're having to really work it and you're braking late, and you know, you're really working this car because of that weight. Even though it's only 1550 kilos, it still feels quite heavy to me. You either go with a powerful car that's going to be about this sort of weight, or you go with something that's closer to 1200, or even less, has a bit less power and is a bit more kind of fun to play around with, you know. So that's what I miss. All I want to do now really is maintain these cars well, but try and put money aside, because there's one more car I think I want to get to my collection, and then I think after that I think I'm done, because owning and maintaining 2 is extreme. 3 might be just ridiculous. I don't know, but I've got a hankering for one more, and I could change my mind on what that is. I might get an out and out track tool, you know, that is track ready, caged and ready to roll, and I could trailer it there. But I think what I'll do is I'll get something that's not quite as valuable, not quite as powerful, but still fun, that could still be a nice looking car that I maintain the paintwork on well, but I use it more for track work, and then use this occasionally for track work when you want to go fast. So that's it, guys. 1 year on into owning the M4CS. It's probably the best car I've ever owned. It's special, it's raw, you get into it and you know as soon as you just drive them down the road, it's like, whoa, it feels nice. The steering is very good on it as well. Generally the balancing of the chassis through the corners as well is really, really good. It grips like crazy. Yeah, great car. So if you're thinking about taking the plunge and getting an M4CS, I would say go for it sooner rather than later. Look for one perhaps that's, you know, around about 20,000 mile or less mark. Look for one that hasn't been rigorously tracked. Most of them are likely to have seen a track, aren't they? And they can take that fine, but you don't want one that's been tracked every month for, you know, a couple of years, because the gearbox will show signs of getting knackered. What else? The engine's okay as always, as long as the oil's changed, it's maintained. The gearbox is really the thing that's going to take the hammer in. The brakes, as long as they've been serviced, you know, and they've got good pads, that's not less of an issue. But yeah, the gearbox probably. So that's it, guys. Take care, and I'll see you soon on the Forensics Detailing channel. Let me know in the comments what you think about the M4CS.
Holding on to what I knew, but the moment's gone. Where was I when